If you weren't already aware, clowns didn't just appear out of nowhere, they seem to most obviously be related to medieval jesters. Jesters were utilized by the wealthy upper class back in 12th century England not only for their entertainment, but also in courtrooms. In a time where speaking your mind could easily get you killed, jesters were placed in a very unique position, being allowed to bring attention to situations with a certain kind of satire that occasionally spared them from the chopping block. Though clowns don't go back as far in history as the jester, the accredited first clown, Joseph Grimaldi, was around in the late 1700s. In his day, he was well known for mocking figures in fashion in 19th century London. He was the first look at what made the modern clown. Most illustrations have him in white face makeup, with various shapes drawn on his cheeks and bright-colored clothing covered in polka dots. Some drawings even include the iconic ruffled clown collar. Clowning stayed pretty stagnant for many years to come, with the next big evolution being the squeaky clean clowns of the 50s. Think Bozo and Ronald McDonald. These clowns were marketed towards children and were a common fixture at children's centers events like birthday parties. However, much to their dismay, their reign was short-lived due to the counterculture trends of the 70s. And on top of just general trends, there was another clown-based incident that occurred in the 70s that continued to muddy the good name of clowns. John Wayne Gacy was born in March of 1942. He was the only boy to a blue-collar family, which was very exciting for his father. That was until he found out that his son had weak lungs, little to no ability to play sports, and also a tendency to cross-dress. It has been reported that John Stanley Gacy was an alcoholic and abusive towards his son. Gacy later ended up dropping out of high school and living in Las Vegas for a short time, working in a mortuary. Later returning to Illinois and starting business school, which he finished in 1963. In '64, he got married to Marilyn Myers, and the two moved to Waterloo, Iowa. While there, Gacy managed several KFC franchises, all owned by his father-in-law. Gacy and Myers had 2 kids, and Gacy was known for being an active member in the community. However, he had a growing taste for sadism that got him in trouble more than a few times. In 1968, he pleaded guilty to sexually assaulting a teenage boy. When he was put in jail, a few others testified, with no additional charges being pressed. During that time, his wife also filed for divorce, with that going through in 1969. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison, though he was paroled in 1970. He ended up moving back to Chicago for a new start, where he was then arrested for 2 separate sexual assault cases in 1971, with the charges then being dropped both times. With the help of his mother, he purchased a house just outside of Chicago. In this new space, he was well liked, hosting many parties over the summer as Pogo or Patches the Clown. In 1972, Gacy married Carol Hoff, and 2 years later founded a business. Many of his employees were teenage boys. Carol began to question why this was after she found pornographic magazines featuring boys and men. With this, she also became suspicious of his many nighttime outings, and the two ended up getting divorced in 1976. His first known murder was committed in 1972. Over the next 6 years, Gacy murdered another 32 young men. He would lure his victims into his house, sometimes offering a job at his company, and then give them alcohol or drugs. At some point, he would mention a magic trick, which would usually involve the young men putting on handcuffs. Gacy would then rape and murder them, usually via strangulation, and his final victim was murdered in 1978. Gacy was arrested and quickly admitted to the murders, but pleaded innocent, claiming insanity. The trial began in 1980. Many psychologists agreed that he was schizophrenic. However, the jury deemed him guilty of all 33 murders, and he was assigned the death penalty. While on death row, he created many paintings deemed horrific. He also claimed to more murders, but those were never confirmed. After many denied appeals, he was finally executed via lethal injection in 1994. As a lovely little side note, while Gacy was still waiting on death row, Stephen King released his iconic book, It, and I think we all know what that did to how the world views clowns. August of 2016, Green Bay, Wisconsin, a mysterious figure was spotted holding black balloons. A video of this quickly went viral, lighting a fire that would stay lit for many months to come. Social media spread fear, turning local incidents into a global spectacle. As news outlets picked up the story, reports multiplied, leading to school warnings, costume bans, and even organized clown hunts. What began as an isolated sighting soon blurred the lines between legend and real anxiety, forever changing the image of clowns. Throughout the coming months, this trend was related to 12 arrests and 1 death, with incidents even making their way outside of the U.S. In October, Canada had reported sightings, and problems also began making their way to the UK and Australia. Though many think that this all came out of nowhere, others have theorized that it was related to a movie that was set to release in October of 2016. Terrifier, a slasher film that follows Tara and her sister Victoria as they become targets of the sadistic killer, Art the Clown, on Halloween night. There was a lot of hype around this movie as fans awaited its release. Though Art the Clown had graced the screens of many since 2008, this was his first feature-length film, and people think the hype behind the movie release was a major player in the reason the killer clown trend kicked off in the first place. It has been nearly a decade since 2016, much to everyone's displeasure, I'm sure. But how are clowns doing in 2025? Have they regained hope? Is there a new spark of joy in clowns everywhere? Have we somehow begun to reclaim the clown? Not at all. In fact, sadly to say, another Slasher the Clown movie was released earlier this year. So it seems that this is not the year that we get to reclaim the spirit of the clown. Clowns were never meant to be scary, and I think the way that we continue to take things that were made to spread joy and ruin them to be tragic or scary says a lot about us as a growing society. I don't think many people place hope and joy in things the way we used to, and instead seem to prefer placing things into situations of fear or high stress, which is where we all seem to always be. It seems we are more comfortable in the familiar fear. Which is sad for me, who has never found fear in things like clowns, as I think there will never be a time where they merely exist to spread joy and laughter the way that they used to, or at least, it's not happening anytime soon. I do hope I'm wrong. I would love to see the return of the bright, silly party clown, though I must admit, history does have a tendency to repeat itself, and I don't think bringing back our trusting clowns is worth another John Wayne Gacy.